Hello, it's Scott Manley here,
I'm Marlona Sky.
we are doing our Random Eve podcast, which we don't have a title for yet, but if any of you listening have a good idea, you should tell us. But anyway, it has been an eventful week, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely over the weekend for sure.
Definitely over the weekend. Yes. Do you have a rough idea on how many ships were destroyed? I'm seeing 5,000 in one 24-hour period.
I don't know. I know they went out of their way, and again, of course we're talking about the Burn Jita. Whereas the first time they pretty much advertised it, what was going to happen, stuff like that. And this time around, they kind of internally released on certain forums and such that they were going to do it, and that was it. It was just
But
planning
everybody
after
knew,
that.
surely.
Well, no.
That's
Only,
just because you didn't know that until I told you.
well, I didn't know for sure. So, and the thing is, I read the forums, and I usually try to stay up to date on stuff. So, there was the whole, I guess, April Fool's thing that they kind of did, but I kind of knew then that, if they don't do it, that means it's a good April Fool's joke. But if they do it, it's like that's even better. So, it was kind of a win-win situation for them.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was over the weekend. In fact, it just finished. It finished kind of late on Monday. It started early. It was a very long weekend, and well, it was clusterfuck coalition and test, and I don't know. I think basically half of nullsec turned out. There were people war decking the various corporations involved.
I think it was is it Nor or
and it shows you how much that it mattered that I am in Goonswarm and I didn't know who we were at war with. Like, it didn't matter. I just warped and killed.
Well, I think it's because usually the major null alliances usually are always under a war deck at some point. It's actually
it is rare to be out of one.
Yeah,
that's the moment where you grab your jump freighters and move them through high sec or whatever.
Like, it's clear, go, everybody.
Yes, freighter chain.
So, well, yeah, and then I heard they actually had a lot of fun, going around and just trying to avoid the major blob and just pick off, the stragglers,
right,
for the event. So.
Yes. Well, I mean, and there was actually an alert that went out where somebody had challenged us to an honorable duel, apparently, and we sent out like 100 or so ships to fight them in some system or other. I don't know how that turned out, but I thought it was highly interesting that somebody had specifically challenged us to a fight and in another system away from the whole Jita thing.
Nice of y'all to take them up on the offer.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm presuming they got enough. These things come in. I'm at work and I see the alerts coming in, and I'm like, oh no, there's super caps tackled, and I'm at work. Damn it!
Oh, I purposely don't have that turned on that way. I don't. I just wait till I get home and then I find out because I'm worried I'll be at work and be like, I'm gonna take the day off early. I'll be back.
But yeah, yeah. I mean, I only got in a couple of kills because I had a very, very busy weekend. But I put a video out and it's kind of
I saw that.
Yeah, it's been my most disliked video.
Wonder why?
Yeah, there's just a bunch of people that thought we were evil for apparently playing the game the way it was designed.
Well, I mean, is that the way it's designed?
Well, See, the thing is, I think a lot of people, they presume, they start up Eve and they read the EULA and everything, and they're like, okay, high sec is safe. They presume that, any attacks in high sec are illegal. But they're not. The rules say that any attacks in high sec will be dealt with, with retribution, right? Concord will destroy them. That's the rules you're playing
out
under.
Of the other.
It's safer, but it's not, it's not secure.
I get it. I think I don't think there's a problem with players, wanting to be in the safest part of the game. Now, is there players out there that think that it should be where they shouldn't be attacked at all? Yeah, there is. I mean, do I want that kind of a game? No.
Right. No. But I mean, to me, it feels like people signing up for like Team Fortress and then, or not even playing Team Fortress, then getting shot at and saying, "Wait, I didn't expect to get shot at." I mean, that's the rules. That's the way it works.
Well, if there was more combat happening, on a more frequent basis, then these kind of things wouldn't be such a jar to them. It would be such a, just suck the wind out of them, and they don't know what's going on.
Right.
It was, but it's just there needs to be more combat.
There needs to be more going. I mean, and I'll tell you what, I get a lot of people who sign up through my like buddy offers, and they ask me for advice. And one of the things I do is I point them at Red versus Blue, and if I can get them into Red versus Blue, they sign up almost always because they suddenly realize what Eve is about, right?
If they have a somewhat knowledge of how to actually do the game, I'll sit there and dish them out to Red versus Blue, or if they're completely green, I will direct them towards Eve University, where they can just really learn the ropes. And after that, I tell them, like, once you learn how to really do stuff and you feel like you're ready to go to like Red versus Blue or something like that. And the thing is, like, that stuff just wasn't. I mean, maybe Eve University was, but it just didn't have the the advertising. It didn't have the presence it does today.
Right. But just the idea of you're a complete newbie, get in a fleet and follow orders, and that's it. That's how you learn the game, the PvP side of the game. I think best. Not if you're part of a blob and you die, then there's no shame because you're one of many. And Red versus Blue is good for that, I find. But anyway, Burn Jita 2 was a huge success as far as I'm concerned. I also made a decent amount of cash.
You did?
On investments, yeah. We knew the way the market was supposed to go, and so we invested appropriately.
I should have jumped on that, but I mean, there's a lot of things that actually go on where if you're paying attention to the forums and you really keep up to date on any kind of new information, like on the test server or dev blogs or dev posts, you can get the jump on that stuff.
Yeah, well, so speaking of which, it's 2 weeks or so till Flight of 1,000 Rifters. How ready is your Nyx? Does it have a T2 armor rigs?
It's actually I bought the Tech 2 armor rigs. Unfortunately, I bought them today, of course, but
oh dear,
yeah.
In the speculation storm.
Well, yeah, no, it's the price actually rose.
Of course.
Yeah, because of today while I was gone, I sit there and see the dev post where they are going to make capital rigs.
Capital size rigs take 5 times as much material to build, and that means now that Trimarks for capital ships are going to cost something like $1.5 billion each.
Yeah, it wasn't quite 1.5 billion, but the Tech 2, I bought a Tech 2 Trimarks for the Nyx today, and it was like I think they were running like 400 million each.
Right. So, but those are large rigs.
Yeah,
so
these are large.
capital-sized rigs, which will be released with Odyssey, will cost you 1.5 billion each. So to fit, your super capital is now going to cost 5 times as much. So everybody is buying them today, fitting to their carriers or their whatever, so that when Odyssey rolls around, they've got them installed and they've paid 1/5 of the price.
Yeah, I mean it's harder to get in this kind of investment now simply because what you're dealing with is you're buying capital ships, billions,
right?
Put on these rigs, and then you got to wait,
wait until Odyssey rolls around.
To Odyssey, where you can actually benefit from it.
Yeah, that's playing the long game.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the other side of this is that because of capital-sized rigs are officially supported, we now have a number of rigs that previously didn't work now actually make sense, right? There's
like rep amount rigs.
Right, the auxiliary nanopumps, they originally didn't work on capital-sized. But
I think you'll see far more use of that style rig being used in, like, low-sec, and then more so definitely in a wormhole space.
Yeah, well, the wormholers, they really like to pimp out their cap ships with T2 rigs, I've noticed.
Oh, they start to do that too now?
That's what I've seen. I mean, Yeah, I have T2
I'm
rigs in
gonna
some
have
of
to
mine, but my
alt
battleships.
out there or something.
As I said, the real money's to be made in Jita, right? Just knowing this. If you had known and you had the salvage, you would have made a killing. And there is still a large margin to be made.
Well, I think I did all right because, again, like I was saying, to sit there and try to. Usually, when it's a module or something like that, that's much smaller and they're cheaper per unit, you'll see people just buy them like slews of them up and then resell them, or hold on to them. But again, since I was looking at Tech 2 large rigs, there's not a whole lot of them out there, and they're expensive to begin with. So, but
well, the
hopefully I got
supply
ahead
is
of the
limited.
curve. Yeah,
The supply is very limited. I mean, Tech 2, basically Tech 2 salvage, where it drops from Tech 2 ships.
it drops from Tech 2 ships, but also I read somewhere
faction rats,
there's faction rats, and then I think there might be
sleepers.
No, I don't think sleepers. I think it's like some exploration sites or something like that will sometimes drop them.
Right, but it's hugely rare anyway, and that's why you're talking like 30 million ISK each for like intact armor plates.
Or you can get some serious Tech 2 salvage on a Burn Jita event.
Those jump freighters. Yeah, those jump freighters. Yeah, those were very juicy. Although it's kind of interesting to see all the vultures running in and trying to salvage ships and sometimes getting smart bombed by typhoons that were sitting there waiting for people.
I saw that.
Yes, yeah. Although we also had hostile typhoons coming in and smart bombing all our pods afterwards as well. Just getting in at every single level. We enjoyed it immensely. But so what else was going on in the development front? I mean, we've got a lot of stuff going on with Odyssey, which will be start of June, I think, is I don't know the official date on that, but it's not long now.
No. Have they actually put any of the battleship changes on the test server yet?
The battleship, I believe a number of changes are on the test server. I haven't actually looked. I know I saw the faction battleships changed. But not battleships, battle cruisers.
Like the Navy cruisers?
Honestly, I was on Singularity, and my main thing is, I've got super caps. Let's do stupid things in super caps, because they handed those out last week.
I should have got on that.
Yeah, well, you may still be able to
practice
do that. Yeah, I want to get some nice, high quality Doomsday footage, really.
Yeah.
Because I don't fly them at all. But yeah, so there's a whole bunch of speculation going on surrounding that. I mean, people look at what goes on in the test server and on like the Chaos server, which is the internal test server, and there's data that comes out of that. And people publish database diffs, like there's Sermatico, I think is his name. He does diffs from the database, and sometimes you see stuff happening there before it gets onto Singularity. And of course, when
they look at what differences between the last build and the current build, right, it just shows them.
Yeah, it shows up the differences in the database, and you can see crazy stuff, and that causes that can cause huge waves of market speculation. Yeah, sometimes you wonder what's going on in the market, and then you look at what's being talked about.
It's a gamble too, just like in the real world. I mean, it could be a speculation where it paid off, and it could be one where it never actually makes it to tranquility.
Right. So. Or I mean, one example actually of a change that we know was coming was the mining barges, right? And people built tons of procurers, right? Which is the smallest one. And it was very, very cheap, but then they made them all cost the same in terms of minerals. But people had built tons of these things because it was the biggest. It was like going to be worth 5 times as much. But the problem is there was no demand for these things afterwards. So now there's never any profit anymore in building procurers for the rest of Yves' life, because there is such a backlog sitting there waiting to be sold.
Well, they did that with the cruisers too. They when they were getting rid of the tiers.
Yeah.
Tertiary or whatever they call it.
They made them all the same.
Right, as before, you've got like I guess entry-level cruiser, a tier 1 cruiser that would use far less minerals than say the tier 3.
Right. Well, I mean, so with the cruisers, though, at least there was a demand for all of those, right? There was legitimate reasons to fly all of those cruisers. I mean, the people that got burned on the mining barges literally built something that nobody flew because it was a mining barge designed to be used in nullsec ninja mining or something. It's like, what?
Oh, it got like
It's,
bonuses to Mark Coxit or something?
it has boost to warp strength, and it's extra agile, and it has one mining laser that mines 3 times as fast.
Yeah. But now that they all kind of, I know some people, they don't like how they have a big tank in high sec, and
That's the
I understand how that,
Oh yeah,
kind of,
they get a big tank as well. Yeah.
a lot harder to suicide gank, but I mean, out in nullsec, I like the idea of like people doing PvE content, and if they do get caught, that they could stand a chance to actually last long enough for friends to come help them out, or even better, actually be able to fight back and actually win. So,
Right. I mean, PvE content, if you're jumped, then you do not have PvP fit, right? You're missing, for a start, you're missing warp disruptors. So even if you can hold your own, you can't kill them because they are going to warp out, right?
Right. And if you fit that kind of stuff, then you're going to be extremely challenged actually doing the PvE content.
Right, you're gimping yourself in that respect. There's this wall that exists between the two types of content that leaves you, one unsuited to the other. And the thing is, though, people doing PvE content are the ones that complain when they get ganked in PvP, but you don't get people that are flying around doing PvP complaining that they can't kill the NPCs. Right?
No, it's they really need to, and I know some people kind of misinterpret this as a certain type of playing the game somebody else's way, but the way people go about doing PvE content, they're fitting, and the environment and the tactics they use to complete this stuff should reflect more towards what people encounter in PvP.
Right. I think that, like in your PvE mission spaces, then there should be targets that are high value targets that you want to get the loot from, and you have to warp scramble them, right? That would then have people in mission fits with warp scramblers so that they can get the fat loot.
Yeah, and if they do get jumped by an actual player, if they're out in low sec or null or wherever it may be, or even like war targets in high sec, they can hold their own and actually, they have a PvP fit now.
Right. And, they should make E-War make more sense. And the problem with E-War is that it only attacks like one ship at a time, right? And in PvE situations, you have so many ships. It's not atypical to have like 28 like NPC ships on grid, which is nothing like PvP, right? These things are very easy to kill. It's
Oh yeah, definitely.
They don't have the DPS, they don't have the tank. It's kind of pointless. If you reduce the number of ships that you were shooting at, then E-War actually starts to make more sense, right? Because then you can, taking one ship of 4 out is vastly better than taking one ship of 20.
Yeah, definitely.
So
the other thing is too is like if there are NPCs that are using a war against you, it'd be better to get webbed by one guy as opposed to 5 guys.
Right. Oh god, I mean, there's so many times that I remember losing ships stupidly because I had like 5 scrams on me.
Oh yeah, definitely. You can encounter those situations in PvP. Make no mistake.
Oh yeah, but it's embarrassing when you lose to a set of NPCs.
You have a far better chance, and you actually it's going to be more exciting, and you'll learn more about PvP situations. So you're now empowered. You actually have more knowledge. You can still do PvE content. The only thing that's changing, excuse me, is the only thing that's changing is just your fit and the tactics going about it.
The tactics, yeah.
You're still not, going against another player. It's just now. I mean, the playing field is a little more even. And,
right. And another problem that with a PvE, you're transitioning to PvP is simply that the NPCs for a long time they would not switch targets ever. And so if you came in, if you were attacked while dealing with NPCs, you were at such a disadvantage.
Yeah, because not only are you having to try to survive the entire mission pocket or anomaly or whatever it is you're at, you're barely doing that. Now you got this other PvP player in a PvP setup that you would already be at a huge disadvantage even if you were just by yourself.
Right.
And you got both of them? I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's how you get some of these kill mails where it's like frigates taking down battleships, and you see that the second thing in the kill mail is like NPC, Guristas or whatever.
Or it'd be the first thing, 95% of the damage is from the mission, and you got the one guy that put out the...
That just scrams them, yeah.
Yeah. Just tips them over the edge. So.
Yeah. Have you seen the... was it Rooks and Kings video where they're talking about the incursions? And
I seen the one where they were doing the incursion, and then another enemy fleet comes in, and they were
relying on the bombers switching targets.
Right, they never did, and so finally they made the call, start taking out bombers.
And they still did it. I love the Rooks and Kings videos, but I just don't see... I honestly don't see how I could operate at their level, but I'm sure it's quite,
I think this goes with a lot of things. I think you're only as good as people you surround yourself with, and if you happen to get lucky and you get into a group that excel at something, you're just going to learn and you're going to get better yourself. So
that group is not Goonswarm. We just have numbers, right? We do the metagame and we do numbers.
Well, I mean, every game needs a bad guy, I guess.
Yeah, we're the inept Stormtroopers, right? Just like... It's totally not true.
Never-ending supply
and nice organization behind it all. But yeah. So what else was going on?
Well, as far as like actual war, that stuff that's happening in Nullsec, one thing that was interesting, right? I mean, right now, over the past week or so, Pandemic Legion and NC Dot and the rest of N3 have been camping R3PO-Z because Solar Fleet, they've pretty much lost almost everything, and their plan was they moved a lot of assets to this system, and they were going to go from here and then just bounce out to Lowsec to reestablish. I mean, they're a very strong alliance. They are. It's just...
They're just now all a very strong alliance in one station, right?
Yeah, I don't know how many alliances that do that, where they just
only you could destroy stations.
Well, there's this. They've sort of, and this is just where Eve players metagame and just literally the human mind just comes into play. And what they've done is the actual system, the station that they had camped in, that had a vast majority of Solar Fleet's assets. What they did was, normally in the past, when you conquer the station, one of the conquerors will take control of the station with their own alliance, and then of course, their alliance and any blues of them can dock there.
Yeah, and then they start buying up all the assets that are getting sold off extra cheap.
They'll buy the assets. They'll grab those fire sales, or even worse, what happens is the enemy that lost the station, they use spies and stuff like that in the other opposing opposition's fleet or blues to siphon those assets out under a friendly banner. So you're under this NBSI, not blue shoot it ticker, and you have other alliances that are blue to you, and unbeknownst to you is they're using those alliances, or even your own, God forbid, to get their assets out. So then all of a sudden it was all for nothing.
Right.
The whole camping, the trapping them in.
And what you got was a few fire sales, right?
Yeah, you got a few fire sales of people that couldn't wait, but those people that were patient, they wound up getting their assets out anyways.
So yeah, but something has happened, I understand, regarding this particular case.
I think it was Shadu and Pandemic Legion, and then Vince Draken of NC Dot and I forget who the third party is, but they decided that since you can't destroy outposts or anything like that as of right now.
Not yet, but it's one of the most requested features, right?
It's got its ups and downs. It definitely deserves attention. It definitely needs to be looked into to find something.
There's too many stations right now in nullsec.
Well, yeah, there's like one almost every day. There's like, oh, there's a new one here, a new one there, and it used to be back in the day. You know, first I always say back in the day is where it would just be like one would pop up like maybe once a month, and it was just like, I mean, people talked about it as news, and now it just nullsec is just littered with all these created outposts
with dumb names, right? Yeah.
Nobody uses.
It's a place to dock up when raids come along.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's just somewhere to. It doesn't, it doesn't have the. I don't know. It doesn't have the symbolic presence of what it used to.
Right. Right.
But back to what happened was they created this alliance called Dead Zone.
Dead Zone.
There's one corporation in there called Life in Jail. There's only
Life.
there's only 3 members. So they took this alliance and they made them the holders of the station. I don't know if it's actually the whole system or not. It might just be the station, but not 100%.
Well, if you're the alliance, you have to own the system to own the state, and the corporation owns the station, right? But the alliance has to hold the system.
Okay. Yeah. So let's see. Let me look.
I think so.
Okay. All right. Oh, and they renamed the station No Evac Allowed.
Oh, I hadn't.
Yeah, I just saw that.
Oh, yeah, no evac allowed. Yes.
Yeah. So now these 3 holders are people that cannot be bribed. No amount of this. It's just the entire point of this.
They have principles.
Are more valuable. Yeah, they have honor.
Or either that, or just the tiers are more valuable than any amount.
Right. So they set up where nobody can dock here except those 3 people in that corporation in that alliance.
And so the only people
I can't even dock there.
Right. And so the only people left are the people in station, and they can undock once, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you happen to be in the station and you're a bad guy, or actually anybody for that matter now,
because it's destroyed,
it's totally cut off. I mean, even if, and the thing is like the assets. If you're trying to put them on market, you're like, okay, I'm just going to cash out, take the hit, and walk away with at least something. Who's going to buy it if they can't dock and pick it up?
Somebody is playing the long game. Playing the long game. But then again, maybe, they're going to gamble that perhaps the station changes hands and they'll be able to get it out eventually. But then again, maybe CCP introduces station destruction as a symbolic act. The alliances go out and destroy that station first.
Yeah.
That's...
What I'm worried about if they go that far, where everything you have is you'll see where people don't really move stuff out the station. Because they don't want to I'm going to go take off this weekend, go try to, go to a buddy's wedding or something, come back.
And station's gone.
Everything is locked down, and, so, but I think there needs to be something in the middle. I think there's definitely room to find something in the middle where conquering a station, a system, has some real meaning to it, but you're not totally making it so bad that nobody wants to bring stuff down to fight with, pew and lose stuff.
Right. Well, the one suggestion I've heard is that once you undock from a destroyed station, it's just like a big can in space, and you can fly up and unload your stuff, but you can't dock anymore.
Right. You can be shot at.
You can be shot at and everything. Yeah.
That's definitely one of those in between. Where you kind of get the best of both worlds, which that could be an option. And of course, people can reinvest in that station, rebuild it, bring it back to life, and that would offer something nice to do as well. So something along that lines, like what you just mentioned, would be where it's at. So, but in the meantime, they've come up with something that I think we're going to see a lot more of.
You think Dead Zone is going to have more people sending outposts its way?
I think we might see more of that, because it's so annoying to sit there and, especially in the current soft system, to just go through all this structure grinding and going through all this war, and then in the end, it's just kind of it all didn't really matter.
It just redraws the lines, right?
Yeah, that's all it does. Redraw the line, and then people they get all their stuff out anyways, and it's just like whatever, and they run off to low sec or high sec or some other place, and they pretty much have everything to begin with.
Yeah, money flows regardless. But yeah,
so I think it's supposed to be, I don't know, it's rumored like 250 plus jump freighters worth of minerals, Tech 2, Tech 1. I think they have over 500 fleet maelstroms trapped there as well.
I heard 2 trillionisk, which is about $30,000, depending upon how you do your conversion.
Yeah, if you want to put some sort of, actual real money to it, it's about 30 grand that's trapped in there now.
Yeah.
On all their players. But again, respect the solar fleet. I mean, if you look at like Dotland and you look at their member count and their corporation numbers, I mean, it's flatline. I mean, they're not
fail cascading, right? They're just staying.
Yeah, there's nobody jumping ship or anything like that.
And that's that's the best kind of alliance. I mean, the alliances that have something outside the game that they just stick it out because that's their thing.
I really would like to sit there and talk to them, find out like what is so different about their alliance, like what kind of I don't know, chemistry goes on there that keeps an alliance like that.
Well,
together.
Does Solar have some sort of outside of game like presence that glues it together? Obviously, Test and Goonswarm are 2 great examples. They have they come from external forums, and that is why they stick together, even when they've been completely wiped out, as they have in the past.
Well, I think the biggest thing is, I mean, they're all mostly Russian, and it's kind of it's an interesting time zone for them, and.
But there's plenty of Russian alliances. I mean, you don't see them jumping to other Russian alliances.
Yeah, that's true. It's more, it's definitely stuff that I could definitely look into, and I'm really intrigued and want to find out more. Because you have other alliances that you're right that do have some Russian presence in it, and it's all you see the same pattern. Once they start losing space, then you start seeing people that just jump ship. And most of the time, all they're doing is they're literally stepping from one boat onto the other new boat that's going to be in the same place.
And hopefully it will sink less slowly.
Yeah,
sink more slowly.
No loyalty at all. So, but that's just the way things go.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I mean, it's always interesting to see these giant changes. I remember Solar blowing me up when I was idle, but I bear them no ill will.
Well, and I think probably the biggest thing definitely that's going to be happening in the next couple of days is going to be Fanfest.
Oh, well, yeah, Fanfest. What is there going on that we got to talk about there? I mean, there's going to be...
they got some big... I think they have some big things up their sleeve that they're going to pull out. I mean, 10 years.
10 years. Have you got the HD stream? Are you going to watch all this?
I went ahead and got it. Why not? So.
Yeah, I don't know whether I'll actually have time to watch it. Fanfest always happens on weekends when I'm really busy with other things, but nonetheless,
I think it's
the ships
Thursday.
And stuff are nice. Yeah, it starts on Thursday. Wow.
I'm pretty excited. I really hope that they don't hold back and really kind of just go really strong on certain things. I'm hoping that they there's some people are hoping that they're doing the pause. They're addressing some issues on the pause stuff.
Right.
What they've said they're gonna do. I mean, it's great.
It's great, but it's not the giant revamp that was promised a year ago. Regardless, it's great to have it.
They said it's not. They said it's not like the pause revamp they really want to do, but it's something to buy them time to get that done. Something like, what, we're going to sit there and in the meantime, till we can do a proper pause revamp, which we're going to do, we're going to sit there and just kind of fix these couple of major issues right now, just to get you along until we can do the real thing.
Yeah.
And I think we might see during Fanfest, we might get a glimpse of what they have in mind. They've kind of hinted at some things here and there, like they really don't like shields because it's a major load on the server whenever ships go in and out because there's all kind of checks to see
Well,
shot. But they also mentioned they understand that fleets need to be able to form up in space and actually some sort of safety. So I mean, how do you do that?
right.
You know, how do you not have a shield?
You have a super capital that makes its own shield. No, that
but
would just be.
But again, you got the same problem. So, but I don't know. I'm hoping that they they address the. And this is just me personally on a personal level. Is like really hope they do something about local and the directional scanner.
I've always been a big. I would love to have an intelligent-based like local system. Where it's not. Forget about local for intel, right? Make all local like delayed, but actually have an intel window that tells you who's in system, and it'll tell you who's in system based upon your rights, based upon your standings. If you fly into a hostile system, and it won't show you all the blues in system, right? It'll only show you who's in your alliance, right? But then make it that if you're owning space and you want to get that intel, you have to deploy structures in space that can actually monitor what's going on.
I'd much
something
rather
that can be attacked.
I'd much rather see people than structures.
Well, what I mean is I'm just saying that if you put a structure on the gate that basically creates the local that you can see if you own it. And that is a target that could be taken down quickly by a small roaming gang, for example. I don't know. These are just ideas.
There's definitely stuff you could do there. It could be where the enemy could hack it, or people could sit there and go in and try to somehow use a way to get information off of it, and they could see what's come through here in the last.
I'm hacking your Gibson.
Yeah. Something that really brings the players into, and also in a fun way, an interactive way that's not like, stabbing your eyeballs out.
I just don't like local as an intel source because it just makes no sense, right? I would replace it with a window that you could just filter and say, only show me reds and neutrals. I don't care about blues.
If they never introduced local when the game came out, and then 10 years later they were like, guess what, guys, we're going to put in this channel that shows everybody in system, their name, their line, like everything, it's going to be instant.
There would be rage. Would
people would be like, that's the
Jita
dumbest thing. They would be like, yeah, that's the dumbest thing ever. But it was needed back then because there were so few players. But now it's nothing but an intel tool, and then
and spam
occasionally talk shit to each other, and that's about it.
Well, I mean, it was great, amusing to see during Burn Jita to be in perimeter and just see continuous messages from people saying, "Don't go into Jita, you morons," and people just flying through in their freighters.
Yeah, because they're on autopilot.
Yeah. Oh, speaking
Just
of
another
autopilot,
weekend, right?
Speaking of autopilot, have you heard about the interesting
the
autopilot hack bans? Now, what happened is there was a dev blog which has some really interesting ramifications. They basically put out a dev blog explaining that people had been using client modifications, right? And that means that they had been injecting Python code into the client and to do strange things. And one of the things they did was they remapped the function that does the warp to 15 kilometers from the autopilot to warp to 0. And that meant that, if you did your autopilot, you would warp to 0 every time, and it would save you a bunch of time. Well, they put in a detection for that. The server has the ability to send out code that the client will execute. And one of the things they did was say, look for this particular modification. They found something like 5,000 players using this. And normally, if you have done client modification, that is an instant permaban. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. You will never play Eve with that account again. But because it was so widespread, it appears they have relented and only banned them for 30 days.
It was. Yeah, I mean, if they just sit there and ban 5,000 accounts or whatever thousands it was,
who were cheating. I mean, client injection is no small there's no small thing. It takes a bit of a. It doesn't.
Yeah, you don't accidentally modify your client.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Like, oh, I accidentally started warping to 0 on autopilot. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
No, you have to really go out of your way to do these things. So, unfortunately, there was a lot of people that really went out of their way to do it.
Right. I mean, the thing is, all those people that were using Warp to 0 were not available for Burn Jita. So I'm kind of curious to know how many of those people were sitting in freighters, for example.
Oh, I don't know.
That would have been an interesting statistic. But another thing that came out of this is that you said that accidental violation or whatever of the EULA. Do you use Yves Montand?
I think everybody uses Yves Montand.
Yeah, well, apparently everybody that uses Yves Montand is violating the EULA. It basically, because they have clarified that cache scraping is against the EULA, and it always has been. Nobody doing before April 15th, which was their announcement, will be punished. But they also then say, hey, non-cheating, in quotes, use of cache scraping will not be punished. Right? But there's no definition of what cheating is or isn't. So basically they've made everyone who plays Eve cheats, but it's only up to them to call them on it and ban you permanently.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where Yves Montand is such a great tool that, and because they don't have anything to replace it. Like if CCP, like, okay, we're going to release an official version of Yves Montand that you can access, by just logging in, just something that's worth it, where that successfully can replace Eve Monitor, then I'd be like, okay, all right, then fine. Nobody can use Eve Mon, whatever it may be, but it's such a useful tool. When it comes to planning your character, it does so much more than that, too.
Right. I mean, the part that it's actually being is specifically affected is the part where it pulls out market prices that you've browsed, right? And that's what's used to maintain Eve Central, the price
Eve
index
Central.
there.
It's there's a lot of player programs that are not designed to gain an advantage in game, as opposed to, say, warping to all gates of 0 with autopilot, or like what you'll see in bots, where it's all automated or anything like that. It's taking information and I guess allowing the player to, read it, in some sort of
that's what cache scraping does. It's pulling out data that normally gets displayed on big formatted windows or whatever, some other way, and allowing another program to index that and do useful stuff with it.
Right.
And a lot of these things just do it in the background for you.
I think the difference is, though, is maybe they should just clarify on this, is, if the program just receives information and that's it, doesn't transmit back to the client.
Yeah,
I think that they're after the programs that actually send stuff back to the client.
What if you had something that was somehow tapped into the network stream and was able to tell you, every ship on grid? It would tell you, collect all that information. It would tell you what weapons they had, who they were aiming at. That
would be.
That's only passive information collection, right? But
it's a real big. I don't know. It's such a sticky subject.
Right, but it just seems that this blog, the dev blog by Stillman, was pretty much not well received. It was a bit of a disaster, if you ask me. And declaring your player base illegal or against the rules is not a way to make friends.
It opened up a lot more doors than it closed. Definitely. I mean,
yeah.
Now people are like, well, now what do I do? You're saying it's okay, a couple posts down, but your opening statement saying it's not okay, so it's not. But you don't want to sit there and say yes or no, so that way it leaves the door open where you can, I guess, feel good about banning these people that actually modify the client. I mean,
right. I mean, the people. For example, if you were to then get involved with something that was slightly borderline, then it could perhaps be used to give you, ban you completely, right? And an example of that would be the factional warfare, the 4X situation, where the players basically inflated the price of certain items so that the rewards they got from factional warfare were way higher than the cash invested.
Yeah, you're talking about they gamed the system. None of them got banned or anything like that.
No, they did have a lot of assets that they had acquired removed, but none of them get banned for that. Partly because they explained in great detail what they had done and had warned CCP.
Even if they didn't explain
beforehand.
All they did was just game the system that was given to them.
Right.
They said, here's your toy. You can do all this. Oh, you can do this other thing too. And they're like, well, what happens if I do this like 5,000 times in a row without doing this other stuff? It's like, well, I don't think anybody's going to do that, but here you go. You can't punish them for something you gave them. But because they had done it to such an extensive amount, I think the only way CCP they didn't have a choice. They had to reverse it to keep. They just redone factional warfare and they were like reintroducing it.
And they had made big mistake in it, right?
Yeah, so it sucks for the guys because they spent a lot of time and effort to get to that certain point, and it just but at the same time, I understand why CCP did. I understand why they reversed it because they had broken it. It went to such a point where I think it was Mimitar. I think it was the faction.
Right. Because they needed the level 5 for the cash out.
It literally was pointless for people to try to compete with these guys that were already years in advance. And even after CCP, if they went and fixed it and they didn't take the stuff back, how are those other people supposed to compete?
Right. They'd acquired so much.
It was
material.
Like trillions.
It was comedy numbers, right?
Yeah, it was just like they were just didn't even know what to do with the stuff anymore. Yeah. So and they were the ones upgrading the systems with their own money.
Yes.
The players thought like, oh hey, we're doing pretty well. We're upgrading left and right. It's like, no, you're not. Like this handful of guys is like literally lifting all the weight as far as the cost to upgrade this stuff, because the more they upgrade it, the more money they're going to make. So
it was a pretty entertaining moment, I'll have to say, and I was close to it, but I was not involved. But
it was like a small circle. Like was it like eight or something?
It was a bunch of goons, and I know every one of them. So I work with them.
You?
I know. I had a pretty good idea, but I didn't choose to go that way.
I don't know. Maybe they had taken off like vacation or something. But it was literally the moment the patch came out, they went to work. They were ready. They had everything already planned out. They had a battle plan. And I respect that, They did a lot of research, and just like with the Burn Jita thing,
absolutely,
well orchestrated.
Burn Jita, it isn't simply about having all the ships and all the fits. There was a whole bunch of research that Goonswarm, specifically actually GARPA, which is the Goonswarm Advanced Research Projects Agency. We did a lot of research into suicide ganking and how Concord spawns and how to get the maximum amount of time before Concord comes and ruins the party. That is a lot of the metagaming stuff that we do on the back end, and sometimes it's on the test server, sometimes it's on the real server, but that gives us a huge edge. And one of the other things, incidentally, since we're talking about news, is We mentioned Yves Montand, and that was a tool which was originally produced by a goon, incidentally. So for everyone that is getting dissed at the goon or getting mad at the goons for Burn Jita, if you've used Yves Montand, just thank the goons, right? But anyway, GARPA has also produced a new tool which they have released to everyone. It's GARPA Topographical Survey, and it's this awesome mapping tool with API connections. You can import like your jump bridges and everything, and it will magically figure out routes for you and everything. It's really an awesome piece of work.
Yeah, there's a lot of programs out there where it's the things that you eventually are like, I can't wait for CCP to sit there and give me what I want, so we'll just create it ourselves, which I think that's just as great, That just shows the kind of involvement you can get into. with the game. I mean, you have more casual players, and but I mean, look how far you can actually take it. You have guys that develop programs that just do all this extra stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's just their nature. But anyway, that is given out for free, and I promise you, there is no malware, no Trojans or anything in it. But it is still entertaining to read people coming up with crazy theories about what other evil is going on.
Well, I think it's pretty. I think it's pretty easy to see if a program is like transmitting information or something, right?
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't. If we wanted to. I mean, it's called steganography. Side channels, things like that. There's ways to sneak stuff out if we really wanted. I'm sure.
Well, if I'm trying to move a freighter, I keep it low on what goes in there to begin with. I mean, when I go to take stuff out of Jita, I just jump straight to low-sec anyways with the dump.
Oh yeah.
So I don't really try to ship stuff to Jita. I'm usually trying to get stuff out to blow it up.
Yeah. But so Fanfest, yeah, it's this weekend and next weekend. Flight of 1,000 Rifters, and you've got that all prepared. You're almost. You got the rigs now.
Yeah, I've got the rigs that I was actually planning on getting all the tank. Thanks to you, you sit there and donated that Plex, which pretty much
10 Plex, right?
10 Plex. That was very, very helpful, let me tell you. So that is going to allow this Nix to be able to last an additional 2 seconds. If everybody shows up.
You never know. You never know.
But yeah, it's. I was actually going to buy this stuff this weekend. When I talked to you last, and you're the last podcast that we did, or the first one that we did, we talked about you mentioned the Burn Jita, and then
you were thinking, we should wait.
I was like, I'll just hold off. I'll hold off till Monday when it's over.
But the time to buy it would have been over the weekend, because all the prices go down because nobody's buying or selling, right? You can't move anything.
I think you killed all the sellers.
Right. So it works pretty well, but that's how it did.
It cost me a little bit because of today the capital rig change, but I think I'm still overall happy with that announcement, though. I think it's going to be really good.
I'm just happy to see cap rigs that will work. There's obviously, it's going to be interesting because they're obviously going to just copy all the blueprint names and add a new load, right? But there's some rigs that just make no sense on capital ships, like warp speed rigs and sensor strength rigs, but they're going to make copies of those blueprints anyway. And
it'll be. I'm sure there's going to be some dreadnought out there with some sort of warp speed rig or something. It's just going to be like, wow,
why?
Who? Not only are you bad for actually putting it on there, but somebody built that.
Yeah, I actually have. Yeah, I have a blueprint, a BPC for Tech 2 warp speed rigs, and it's a large BPC. No one.
Oh, large! Oh my god!
Right.
I put those on my interceptors. I'll put those on my interceptors, or maybe a covert ops or something. But
right. There was a time when the deep space safe log off trick was working, when it would actually have made sense to put large hyperspace rigs on an Orca if you wanted to get the absolute biggest, deep safe distance. But that was a very small window. And even then, I don't think I could persuade someone to buy Tech 2 versions.
Well, hang on to it. Maybe one day.
Maybe one day. Who knows? There's going to be a bunch of changes. Always hang on to things and maybe sell them.
I'm pretty excited about the Fanfest, though. It's going to be. I really hope it's some big stuff, and I hope it's good big stuff.
What do you want to see? What could be the coolest thing they could announce at Fanfest this year?
My dream would be the removal of local, and at the same time, the revamp of the directional scanner. Just ways that players that interact with it can achieve, gaining useful intel in a way that's not just mind-numbing, but that's actually fun and interactive, and it's just good. That would be what make my dream come true.
Yeah, I personally, What I want to see is big announcements about relocation of resources and stuff in Eve. I want to see huge upheaval in the markets so that things move around, empires are created and destroyed, and chaos reigns and all that kind of stuff. No, I just like to see change happening.
I really like local because that affects so much. I mean, it literally blankets so much stuff, and it has such a huge ripple effect.
Who doesn't use local, huh? Oh, yeah. People that are playing it as a single-player game, right?
There's some people, they just minimize it and they go about their way, and then, so it would change everything. I really think it would. I mean, but it's such a huge change, and I understand, it's just human nature, and people whoa, a huge change, and it's just like they don't know if they're ready for that. But when I did the April Fool's joke on the Matini.com, where I had the CCP is going to remove local and Odyssey expansion, almost all of the comments were people that were for it.
Absolutely.
I think it was just once it's officially announced, or at least they thought, they were like, okay, I don't have to worry about it anymore. It's going to happen. I'm fine with that. I'm looking forward to it.
That was a better joke than CCP's April Fool video, to be honest.
Oh, I don't even know if I watched that.
Yeah, that was the one where they had interior design on the spacecraft, and they also actually trolled you right out the bat with a if you sign up for a premium dust thing, then you get a permanent, some sort of permanent boost in terms of skill training. Oh, that's it. If you signed up for a Dust Premium account, then you would get a boost to skill training in Eve. So that was immediately getting the Eve people mad.
Oh, well, I mean, a few years ago they sit there and joked around with, April Fools, we're going to introduce microtransactions.
Right. Well, yeah. Maybe they will introduce microtransactions that actually work one of these days. The problem with them introducing microtransactions now for skins and things like that is they gave out all this free Aurum that nobody spent. And so as soon as they introduce it, all that stuff will be spent, and it will be valueless still. It will...
if they made an actual, where you can go in the game, and docking station or whatever, and you could sit there and do custom skin, and people will buy it, where you could sit there and, buy the paint or whatever it is with Aurum, create this skin, and it's a one-time use on this one particular ship or whatever it may be, and have it where it's actually cheap. As long as they have it cheap, where it can constantly be bought, sold, used, destroyed with the ships, people will buy it.
People would buy skin. I don't think that would happen. The ability to draw your own probably wouldn't happen for technical reasons, because then typical denial of service would be you'd warp your entire fleet into your hostile fleet with every single person having custom skins, just so that the other fleet just lags out as they load all your custom skins. Now, I think it would have to be restricted to predetermined skins, alliance logos, and things like that. And
most of the big fleet fights, people are zoomed out pretty far.
Right, but
as long as the game don't register.
Yeah, the game would still have to load stuff. I don't know. I'm sure there's ways around it. They would show the crappy version, in high lag situations.
Yeah. I mean, it's even if other players couldn't see it, or maybe unless they, when you click on another ship and you hit look at, then it loads it. Even if that's as far as it went, people would still buy it, because it's their ship,
Yeah, well, I've always said the ships are the characters, not the people, and more work needs to be done into letting people customize their ships,
I think that would be the only way they could really try to break into that.
I wrote a blog long time ago about how I thought ships should become the characters, but it was all a bunch of bunk that nobody would care about. But hey, I have opinions. But I think we're coming to the end of this. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out if there's anything that we have missed. It's been an hour, and we've covered a lot of ground. I tell you, Eve is a big game, isn't it? It
really is what you decide to make it out to be. I mean, you go from just being, you want to be that casual player, does the occasional mission, maybe partakes in some faction warfare, maybe just does some red versus blue, where you could sit there and really, really dedicate a lot of energy and time and create, alliance. You could do these programs we were talking about. I mean, you could do all kinds of metagaming. You could sit there and create things like where you effectively destroy a station while you're waiting on an official destroy the station from
Right.
the actual game creators. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can do, and there's always something to do.
That's right. It is a wonderful place to be, but I wouldn't necessarily want to live there.
As long as you keep your clone up to date, I think you'll be right.
Yeah. I wouldn't be so bad. Well, anyway, I'm Scott Manley. You are?
This is Marlona Sky.
And, yeah, we'll see you next week. Fly safe.